Hi, this is oh, croaky throat. Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Sorry about that. I'm not editing it out. I'll come to that in a minute. Welcome to another one of the final episodes of the Project Orchids 2025-2026. This is where we've had a whole year at 6-week intervals of viewing the progress of selected plants selected by yourselves, the viewers. This is plant number 3, which is Miltoniopsis her Alexanderae, and I've done each one of these final videos differently to put variety into it, and I'll tell you why this particular variety has been chosen. Some of the videos I actually paused the video and put a still next to it from the previous update, so you could do a direct comparison on the screen, like, you know, against side by side, that sort of thing. So in this update I've taken the stills that I've got, which is 4, I've stuck this bit on the front, and I'll do an update on what the plant is like today on the end. Now the 4 stills I will produce a soundtrack to, so I'll just have a quick chat about them. So this is going to be a very short video. Now we get to the why. The last video took nearly 4 hours work. Now that might not seem obvious when you watch the video, but it did. And did I get the views? No. I don't expect to get the views on this video. So the amount of effort going into it goes right down. A lot of my videos are literally, I film them, process them and post them. So for say a half-hour video, I'm putting in probably about an hour's work. Maybe a little bit more, but not much. You know, but the last video, that amount of effort going in for so few views, it's not a waste of my time, because this is the end of the project. It's got to be done for each of the plants. 2 more to go. And I said I'd do it, so I'll fulfill my obligations, but I'm not putting in that sort of effort, not for the number of views I get. So this one is short and sweet. So let's get on with it, and I'll be back at the end to have a look at as the plant is today and have a chat about the overall progress for the year. So I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so this is our first still. This in effect was the first look, so this was going to be the basis of the comparisons. So this was done in May last year, 2025, and this had finished blooming at the end of February 2025, so it hadn't long been out of bloom, but nonetheless it wasn't in bloom now. We didn't have very good roots. That's not untypical for Miltoniopsis. Well, it's not untypical for mine anyway. And there was a bit of growth on it. I wouldn't say it was a brilliant plant, but it also wasn't a lousy plant like some of my Miltoniopsis have been. Some of my Miltoniopsis have been in a state where I sort of think it's not worth trying to recover this, because it's never going to be up to much. Once they go down to a certain point, they're very difficult to bring back to a strong, healthy plant. So anyway, that's as it looked at the beginning of the project in May 2025. Okay, this was our first update, so this was as the plant looked in June. Now you can see why the video that I did, which included all 8 clips of what the plants looked like, was not a brilliant success, on the grounds that, can you see the difference between this and the previous update? And that was the problem. Although 6 weeks sounds like quite a long gap, with relatively slow growing orchids in some cases, there was not enough difference to warrant the update. But it was supposed to be all 5 plants done together. So that's what was done. But basically this plant in June, the main thing is it hasn't gone downhill anymore. it's remained constant. There's been a little bit of improvement on the growths, on those that are growing, not the older growths, and for that I'm pleased. There's not a lot of root activity, but the plant is still stable, and that's the main thing with Miltoniopsis for me. The stability and remaining in a good state has been difficult to achieve in the past, so I was pleased with this. So that's as it was in June. Okay, we're now at update 3, so this was September 2025, so it's jumped 12 weeks instead of 6, and hopefully you can see there is a difference in the size of that right hand growth. There has been progress, growth is showing, so it has put on some growth despite that being the summer months. But luckily I keep the temperature down in the main. I don't get too many days where it climbs up too much, and when it does I add in extra humidity and get the circulating fan on full blast. That at least helps keep the leaves cool. You can't go too mad with fans with Miltoniopsis. They have very thin leaves. If you blast them too much with fans, you can actually dehydrate the plant, because you'll draw out the moisture from the leaves and it won't be able to replace them from the roots, or it's highly unlikely, certainly in my case, because they've never got really good root systems. But you can also see there is some new root activity. There are some white roots showing. So at this particular update I was quite pleased. We'd had some good progress, got a reasonably strong growth pushing on, and we got some root growth on top of that. That's like the real bonus. So yeah, that's as it was in September. Okay, so we've jumped forward to update 5 now. This was in December 2025, so this was sort of bringing the year to a close for this plant, and we've got blooms. And I'm glad we've got blooms because they are very attractive. Now obviously on this still the blooms are relatively small, so I'll add the pop-up of the separate still I've got of the blooms so that you get a better look at them. I'll stick that over to one side so you can see the blooms a bit clearer, shall we say. But at this stage of the year, obviously we've lost the amount of daylight hours. That's dropped right down, so plant growth is slowing up on all my orchids, and that will include this one. But it's managed to get a spike out, it's managed to bloom, and there is still a bit of root activity going on. The plant is remaining stable, so I'm very pleased, and to have got a flower spike as well on top of that's really good. Now a decent flower spike for Miltoniopsis her Alexander would probably branch and have 6, maybe 7 blooms on. Now you can buy them like that, but I've certainly never managed to reproduce that. 2 or 3 blooms is all I ever seem to get, and that's to do with the strength of the plant, which is to do with the amount of roots pushing that plant on. And without that really good strong root system, you don't get the top growth, you don't get the strength to be able to produce those large spikes. So there we go, that's as it was in December. We managed to get it to bloom within the project, which I was very pleased about. They didn't all do that, I don't think. But yeah, pleased with that. And again, with a Miltoniopsis, still alive, that's a bonus. Okay, so this is as the plant is today. So this is as the plant is at the end of the project, a year later basically. Now the most important thing for me with a Miltoniopsis is that after a year it's still here, because I do not have a lot of success with these, I never have. But I'm having better success here at this place because I grow so much cooler. So I've taken away one of the stress elements, which is heat. Worse still, heat and a dry atmosphere. Heat, dry atmosphere, bright light. soggy media. You name it, these things will suffer from it. But anyway, I still have a plant. And not only that, I don't have brilliant roots in the pot, but I do have new roots growing on this new growth here. Now, this is a relatively small new growth, but it is still growing. And I've literally just noticed today we have a flower spike. Now, that looks like it's only going to have one bloom. As I said, I won't say that's a big strong growth, because it's not. We have another growth where that's a relatively new one, and then we have another one coming out from inside this bract. So it is in growth, and hopefully during this phase it will put up a few better roots, because the roots on this are not too good. Nonetheless, it's still alive, and we haven't got much in the way of crinkled leaves, and it's growing and it's producing a little spike. So I'm happy that I've managed to keep it alive for a year, and it is sort of showing progress, and that's about all I can say about it. It's not a major success. This isn't a big stonking fit as a butcher's dog type healthy plant, because it's not. But it's hanging in there, and it is at least putting on some new growth, and the old growths are not failing. The bulbs are not all shrivelling. They're keeping their plumpness. So, as a Miltoniopsis goes in my care, in my environment, this one's doing okay. So I'll leave it at that for this one. As I said, it'll probably only going to be one bloom, but at least it's got a spike from what is a relatively weak, but not totally weak, new growth. So that'll do for this one. I'll be back next week, either Wednesday or Thursday, for plant number 4. As I said, there's 2 to go, and I will think of something different for plant number 4 again. And it won't be anything that involves 4 hours work, that's for certain. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.